Alrighty, guys, welcome to UFC Fight Night Imavov versus Borralho at UFC Paris. Um, Week long break, but gets a chance to kind of reset. Ooh, haircut, and then we're back with more UFC action. A really good fight card. Did lose a fight though, a couple hours ago. We'll talk about that as we get closer. But let's get straight into the fights. All right, opening up at strawweight, Sean O'Bannon versus Sam Hughes. And Hughes is entrenched at minus 300, and for good reason, right? Because Sean O'Bannon, despite look at a record 7-1, may not be too bad, but you really dig into those fights closely, and she does not look great in hardly any of them, right? She got dropped by Puja Tomar her last fight, which is just a horrible look. Puja Tomar is definitely not UFC level, and she got dropped bad, almost put out in that fight. And just all around, her striking style just doesn't translate well to mixed martial arts. She's got like a taekwondo karate style that just doesn't really have a lot of power behind it. On the ground, she stays way too long on her back, goes for submissions, and against Sam Hughes, like all that stuff is really just not going to mean a lot because you get someone like Sam Hughes, she's just going to bulldoze her way forward, right? She has the cardio, has the pace and the pressure, and even has a striking to hang with Bannon, who was, this highly regarded striker coming in the UFC, and it just hasn't translated over. So, again, minus 300 on Hughes, who does like leave fights pretty close, right? She does drop that first round a lot. It's a little bit of a red flag, but I'm as confident as ever in her to get this done. Bannon just is not on the level of UFC, in my opinion. So give me Hughes to get it done by decision. But I will say she does have some pretty nasty ground and pound. So maybe late second round into the third round, maybe we could see something there. All right, next fight at welterweight, pretty decent fight. We got Andreas Gustafsson versus Renat Fakhretdinov. Gustafsson, surprisingly not to a lot of people, is the favorite here, minus 120. You're getting even money on Renat Fakhretdinov at plus 100. And listen, a lot of this is going to stem from his previous fights, and that being Renat's previous fights, right? He has kind of looked pretty. I'll just say he looks pretty horrible his last couple fights, right? Last fight, I mean, everyone knows it. Clearly a robbery against Carlos Leal, which got put out in 30 seconds, so not a great look. Fight before that was an arguable decision win for Dalby there. Again, Dalby's a decent guy, so I'm not really gonna ravage that too much. He looked decent in the third round, which has been his issue in the past, right? The cardio has not looked great, right? He'll come out hot in the first couple rounds, right? Big power in his hands, good wrestling, good jiu-jitsu, but as the fight wears on, his striking gets real sloppy. And the takedowns just aren't as easy. But he showed that Dalby fight, he was able to kind of clinch and use the cage control in that third round, kind of grind out that victory. Um, and luckily for him, against a guy like Gustafsson, he's not some sharp striker or a really like dangerous jiu-jitsu guy. He's just like a brawler almost, right? He basically comes in both his fights against Williams and against Pat Pitlick, basically just charged forward at them and immediately got in the clinch, immediately tried for takedowns. He's a brawler at his core, right? He's got nasty elbows in the clinch. He was busting up the face of Chaos Williams in that fight. So if Renat comes in here and just try either is over swinging or is trying for way too many takedowns of his own early, he definitely could gas, but it does like Renat does seem like the type of guy that's just gonna be impossible to um to just smother early, right? This guy starts out real fast, got power in his hands, and unlike Chaos, he does have the wrestling to back up that power. So if Gustafsson's charging forward recklessly, this is how I faded Gustafsson last time. But if he's charging forward recklessly and he can't get those takedowns, the chin is going to be there for Fakhretdinov. So I am going to take a gamble on him at plus 100. Don't love it because I've been a bit of a hater of his in the past, but I got to put biases aside, and this is what I see in this fight. I think it's a pretty good matchup for him. So give me Fakhretdinov to win by decision, I think. All right, moving on to middleweight, we got Brad Tavares, longtime veteran Brad Tavares versus Robert Brychek. Tavares entrenched minus 210, which is a little bit surprising to me. I'll get to that later, but Brychek, I mean, I am hoping for a little bit more here. And I do think there's more than that UFC debut because he did look very very poor in that UFC debut, and it sucks, right? Because he's not a young man, right? He's 35, and you expect a little more urgency from him, especially in the striking, which is basically all he has in the UFC. But he looked poor against Ihor Peteri, who's no longer even in the promotion. So coming in this next fight, I do expect a little bit more. And against a guy like Tavares, it might be a good opportunity for him to kind of exploit what is a pretty, safe guy to fight. And by safe, I mean the guy's not dangerous at all, right? Been in the UFC for around 15 years, and all respect to him, he's able to stay around this long. But the dude only has 2 finishes in 15 years. So it's definitely going to give Brychik the opportunity to be a lot more aggressive in this space. And again, we could see Tavares just kind of grind this one out the way he's done most of his recent wins, right? With the striking, right? The guy's still pretty sharp for even for 37. But obviously there is concerns, right? He is 37, but he's taking a ton of damage over his UFC tenure. It's probably more like in fight years, probably more like 45, right? The chin obviously is fading a little bit. It's still there, but definitely wasn't the same as it used to be. Um, Obviously there wasn't ever no power. There wasn't any power in the first place with him, so can't really say that's faded. But just the overall speed and athleticism definitely has. So again, I'm gonna pick an underdog here. I'm gonna pick Brychek to win. I just think the in terms of youth, he's probably still younger in fight years, but I think the power and the speed is going to be on his side as long as he can stay active and kind of not get, either blow his load early because Tavares will stick around all 3 rounds or just be too gun shy early. I think he should be able to win this fight either by decision or even by a knockout. There is, he's not a soft puncher. He does have a lot of power in those hands. So giving Brychek to win by decision, again, knockout might be open though in this fight. All right, pretty good fight at welterweight coming up. Sam Patterson versus Trey Waters. Two guys that are just lanky ass motherfuckers. Okay, Sam Patterson sitting at 6'3", which is usually his towering over his opponents, but Trey Waters 6'5", definitely towering over all his opponents. But they're gonna get two people that are kind of even in terms of the height, and that could be a problem for both these guys, honestly, because I really don't love the striking defense from either guy. Right, they got that tall man's defense, just lean back, kind of avoid any big bombs that the shorter guy is throwing. But again, that might not be an option here in this fight, especially for Waters, who's at a reach disadvantage of an inch here. So if he gets caught with that tall man's defense, again, that chin is way up in the air when you're using that. So definitely got to throw caution to the wind when using that. But listen, this is a good match for both guys. And what I mean is, Waters does have the striking, right? He does. And again, I say tall man's defense. His defense is a bit better than Patterson's, but he definitely is a very sharp striker, right? He's fought some tough guys in the UFC. I know Josh Quinlan kind of sucks, but Billy Goff definitely is a decent fighter at the UFC level. And, he showed a lot of heart in that fight, right? Goff was just coming right in his face. Oh, pause. Goff was coming at him, and Water was able to stay composed despite the heavy pressure. Was able to kind of work all 3 rounds, which I thought was very impressive from a guy as tall as him and cuts as much weight as him. Just a very impressive performance overall. And what can you not say about Patterson? Once moving up to 170, just ran through everyone, including uh, top prospect Danny Barlow. He shipped him off to 185. He knocked him out so bad, but that's what I love to see, a knockout, standing knockouts. Like this guy was basically viewed as kind of a grappler before that Danny Barlow knockout. He was able to show off some of the hands in his last fight against a striker. So I guess a long striker. So maybe you can show some of the more of those hands against Trey Waters, especially if this fight gets extended. But I am going to pick Patterson here, mainly because of the grappling upside. And what I'm meaning is, right, Waters, right, 3 losses overall, 2 amateur and 1 professional, all by submission. And against a guy like Patterson, he really uses his length well on the ground. Something I can't say about Trey Waters. And if he can extend this fight, maybe even have some striking success before looking for those takedowns, kind of set it up with the striking. I think he has a chance to dominate this fight. So, getting Patterson by submission here. But again, nothing really would surprise me in this fight. Waters himself has some good front chokes. So, we'll see what happens in this fight. All right, it's one of the new bookings at lightweight. Cage Warriors featherweight champion. I will say featherweight champion. Harry Hardwick taking on Cowie Fernandez on short notice after Ziam stepped down. So we got a new fight coming up. Hardwick, for those of you who haven't watched the Cage Warriors promotion, mainly a striker. Um, does have a submission game in his arsenal if he does choose to work the fight to the ground, but he is mainly a likes to strike with people. Decent power, pretty tough on the feet too, right? He's been in a lot of he's had a lot of like decently tough matchups on Cage Warriors. Showed a lot of heart in those fights. Was kind of getting worked a little bit in the beginning, but was able to kind of pull away and find finishes in some of those fights. So he's definitely a guy, definitely deserves this UFC call up. Despite it being a lightweight, and that is gonna be a problem here because Cowie Fernandez, had a bit of a rough debut against DeCasey, but DeCasey's a veteran, and these next two fights against people who are lower level than him, he showed up and showed out in those fights, right? Against what was it? I forget his name, but the guy from UAE Warrior, he smoked him, right? And that's what you're supposed to do because the guy Muhammad Yahya, that's what you're supposed to do against that guy because he's not good, and he smoked him. He finished him in under a couple minutes. And then against Guram Kutaladze, big underdog in that fight, and he dominated that fight. He beat him bad, right? Knockdowns in all three rounds, just a pure, like I said, domination. And in this fight, everything's gonna be there for Cowie Fernandez. The size, right? The striking defense of Hardwick, something I really don't like. That is one of the big parts of his game that is like a big red flag. Is his striking defense. He gets caught sometimes early in these fights, so I think it's Cowie's fight to lose here. And that's what the odds say, right? -175. So I think you're getting a discount on him, perhaps. But yeah, just everything points to this being kind of a rollover for Fernandez, right? The striking advantage, the fact that Harvick taking this a weight class up. So, give me Fernandez to win this fight by knockout here. Again, no disrespect against Harvick. He definitely deserves to be in the UFC, but I think this is like way too much for his UFC debut, especially on short notice. All right, moving on. Rank fight at heavyweight. We got Marcin Tybura taking on Anti. We're gonna call him that. Tybura is in. I'll say Delijah. I think that's how you say it, but kind of flip flopped in terms of odds over these past couple weeks with this fight. The odds have been out for a while, but this, like I said, just flip flopping. I don't think any fighter's gone over -120. That's been, I think Delijah was at -120 at some point, but it's kind of going back and forth. Debor sees himself at the smallest favorite, -115, but it's quite an interesting matchup. Delijah, this is a rematch, but the first one ended like an injury loss, so that's not really legit. Delijah coming over, he had some experience in some big promotions outside the UFC Octagon and PFL, so he's definitely very, very experienced already, and I don't think there you probably won't see like the UFC bright lights. That probably won't be a factor for Delijah. He's 35 years old. He's a veteran at this point, so you're definitely gonna not see him like go off course for his performance. But the dude's mainly a striker, I would say, just kind of a bully, right? Likes to get in your face, has good cardio, in good shape, as you can see from this picture, and yeah, likes to push a good pace. Does have the heavyweight power in his hands. And if the striking isn't going, according to plan, if he's not really getting the guy out of there, or if he's getting hit, he does like transition to wrestling, right? He likes to get close, get the clinch. Not really any traditional takedowns, but will tie up and kind of toss you, or maybe a bear hug takedown. But I really wouldn't recommend takedowns against Tybura. But honestly, he probably won't need him in this fight, right? Because Tybura, all respect in the world, does take all these chances against these prospects. But, as you can see in the stand up, he's gotten more and more uncomfortable as he's kind of aged out of the heavyweight division. I say aged out, he's only number 7, but we know how kind of garbage some of this heavyweight division is. But, yeah, just the striking just does not look good in his last couple fights. I know he was having success against Parkin, but that is really a guy who isn't very dangerous on the feet. Elijah is dangerous on the feet. We've seen him struggle like a lot on the feet. He is able to get those takedowns in those fights against Janata Deniz and Tai Tuivasa, but in those fights he was getting hurt bad on the feet. Just a couple minutes in, he was you know, he was rocked, he was bleeding, he had a nasty cut above his eye, but so if he's not able to get these takedowns, or if Elijah doesn't shoot, I could see Tybura in a lot of trouble early in this fight because the chin it's not there anymore. It's gone. But that is for that reason I am going to pick Elijah. Again, not very confident. The odds say that, right? It's a pretty even fight. If this fight ever does go to the ground, Tybura very good on the ground, has a lot of sneaky sweeps and stuff. Really nasty with that ground and pound. So obviously, if it gets there, I would assume Tybura would have an advantage. But just off of the striking and the way they've fought the past couple fights alone, got to pick Elijah here. All right, moving on. This is now the this is now the feature prelim. At light heavyweight, Umar Sy versus Brenton Hibero, and this is just very confusing, right? Umar Sy at minus 500 after the kind of goose egg performance he showed in his last fight. It wasn't against a top 15 guy, but it was just really a poor performance. He's sitting at like minus 900 last fight and just basically didn't show up to fight, right? He got rocked early against Menefield, and after that early kind of exchange, he was just kind of timid the whole fight, right? Didn't really want to engage on the feet. Only shot a couple takedowns, that's the thing, right? He's mainly a grappler, doesn't really have too much success on the feet, and in that fight, he was just timid. He didn't know what to do, right? And against a guy like Menefield who had the good takedown defense, he was just kind of lost out there, which is it's a problem. I mean, especially this is like a 26-year-old, so it's very concerning when you get a guy that just doesn't want to engage, doesn't want to fight as a big favorite like that. So, obviously it's concerning. Hibera, on the other hand, you can't say about that he does fight, but it's clear the skills really aren't there, right? The chin's concerning. The takedown defense just hasn't been there in the past couple fights. He has kind of strung together a couple wins. I know last fight he didn't win, but like I said, strung together a couple good wins. Really kind of made a name for himself as a finisher. Again, he does have that power, does have the danger on the ground, both off his bottom and on top. So definitely got to be aware of him. And if Sai comes in and just doesn't want to engage early, if he gets hurt again early, could see a repeat, honestly. But I think you'd have to rely on them not making adjustments, his camp not making adjustments, and I just don't think that's gonna happen. Right? I think Sai should win this fight. Right? This is could be by knockout, submission, or decision. I have by decision, but I just can't really trust Hibera as well, right? The dude, very finishable. Already has 8 losses in his career, and a lot of those are pretty bad losses. Lost to a guy that isn't in the UFC anymore just recently. So, a lot of holes to exploit in his game. So that's why I'm going to pick Sai in this fight to win by decision. All right, this is now the new main card opener at featherweight. William Gomes versus Robert Uchala. We originally had Pitbull versus Kita, but a couple hours ago, Kita missed weight by 3 pounds, pretty much a botched weight cut. And the fight got called off, or is no longer taking place. So we got this instead as the main card opener, at least for now. Maybe there could be some adjustment because William Gomes not a very exciting guy, but the French fans still love him. And like I said, not an exciting guy, right? He's got the savant French style. Just like a point fighter, pretty much. Just kind of keeps range, plods with that front kick, the jab. Straight shots are very good. This guy's very well rounded overall, which I like about his game. Right, he's actually decently good at the takedown defense. Can even secure his own takedowns at some points if he is feeling that pressure. But the style that he has, the point fighting style, really cost him his last fight against Hyder Emil because Emil was keeping up that crazy pressure and Gomes just didn't have the power, didn't have the he just wasn't receiving any respect from Hyder Emil because the danger just isn't there when you're fighting William Gomes, right? He doesn't try to finish you. He doesn't try to hurt anyone. He just tries to win, which is good, right? If you're winning, it's good. And that's what makes him reliable because you know what he's going to do. He's going to go in there and try to point fight. And against Richala, he should have success, right? Richala coming in from KSW, another pretty highly regarded promotion. This guy's a pretty good grab, pretty good everywhere, but I'd say mainly a wrestler, but doesn't really carry the same pace that Hyder Emil did against William Gomes, and I think it's going to be good for Gomes, right? In the at range, he'll definitely be winning the exchanges, right? Like I said, long kicks, straight shots should win on the exchanges far away and up close in the pocket. I think he's used his size in the clinch, right? Kind of avoid those takedowns. And if Ruchala wants to put on that same pressure that Emil did, he's gonna gas. So give me Gomez by decision. Again, can't really trust the dude at minus 270, but he's just a better fighter in this fight. I gotta pick a better fighter here. All right, moving on to welterweight. This is another kind of short notice matchup. Uh, Usual lightweight Axel Sola taking on Reese McKee. Sola is the favorite here at minus 135, which did surprise a lot of guys. I see a lot of people on Reese McKee this week. And that is mainly due to the short notice up and weight opportunity for Sola. Right, he is taking this fight at 170. He's the 155er, won the 155 belt for Aries FC. And the dudes can do it all right. Southpaw striker. Pretty good range management. Again, 5'11" is pretty tall for lightweight. He is coming up in weight, so keep that in mind. He's gonna have a pretty big size disadvantage here. But likes to keep the range. Pretty good kicks overall, good leg kicks. But does kind of want to transition to the wrestling at some point. Pretty good wrestling. Does shoot like actual takedowns. And the ground and pound is definitely there. So he's kind of pretty dangerous everywhere he goes. So he can definitely win decisions, especially we've seen his last couple fights him win decisions. But this could be a problem against Reese McKee, right? Who finally got his first UFC win, but the record doesn't really say the type of killers he's been fighting and how competitive he's kept it with a couple of these guys. I know Chidi and Joe Kawani fight wasn't a split decision, but he was still keeping it tough with Chidi, who's on like a different level for most of these guys in welterweight. So big respect to Reese McKee, right? The dude's a pretty good striker. Showed a lot of power in his last fight. So if he's able to kind of wear down a guy like Solo who's taking this fight on short notice, could see him find a late finish here. But I am going to pick Axel to get it done by decision. I do love the wrestling approach from him actually in this fight because we've seen Reese McKee kind of get stalled against the cage, kind of struggle with those fighters, and against a guy that can mix it up with the striking too. I think he could be a problem for McKee in this fight. So give me Solo by decision. Not loving it though, to be honest. All right, moving on. Lightweight fight. We got Balaji Oki taking on Mason Jones. Jones sitting at minus 130 here. And this is, if you read my Twitter post, this is the fight I'm most confident in underdog in, right? I'm picking Balaji Oki in this fight. Then because Mason Jones is so damn hittable, man. You see every fight against Mason, even his fight against Jeremy Stevens. Jeremy Stevens, who hasn't fought MMA in 4 years. He was getting kind of lit up in that fight, right? He had to resort to the wrestling to win that fight against Jeremy Stevens. And, that's a problem if it gets Balaji Oki because Oki's got crazy power in the hands. Again, I don't expect Jones to get like flatline knocked out in a minute because the dude has a nice chin too. He's a competent striker himself, but against Oki, excuse me, the defense is a problem because Oki has the power to hang with Mason Jones on the feet, shown good takedown defense in his 3 fights in the UFC. The fight IQ, obviously a big concern because he was kind of lighting up Chris Duncan before he ran into a guillotine. But I think the skills are all there for Oki. He just has to put it all together. I think this is the perfect opportunity for him. I like him in this fight against Mason Jones to use his power to kind of get him off from the striking, defend those takedowns. Hopefully, don't shoot for any takedowns himself, and keep it at range, at space, and kind of exploit the poor striking defense of Mason Jones. So, give me Oki to win this fight by decision, but the knockout definitely on the table. All right, feature fight at heavyweight coming up. We got Modestas Bukauskas taking on Paul Craig. Bukauskas is minus 350. Craig is plus 285. And look, but this Bukauskas looks like he's getting locked in, but just generally speaking, this dude is very inconsistent, especially throughout his UFC career. He had a rocky first start, got cut, got re-signed. He's looked okay since rejoining, but obviously he's kind of hitting his stride recently. He's got I believe 3 wins in a row, 2 by stoppage. And those 2 by stoppage aren't against great opponents, but he's still doing what he needs to do in those fights. But he's still kind of inconsistent, right? Got rock bad versus Pratchett. Obviously, this isn't the fight that is Pratchett, right? Paul Craig doesn't really want to strike at all. It's kind of a BJJ or bust, especially at this point in his career where the chin is not there anymore. The takedowns, again, haven't really been there his whole career, but Didn't really look there in his last couple of fights. He did shoot takedowns actually against Rodolfo Bellato. Some actually worked. So maybe we could see some more of that. But again, I can't realistically pick Paul Craig at this point in his career. Just way too inconsistent, way too chinny. Against Bukowskis, if he really is locked in, if he is, back, then we are gonna see it in this fight. He can blow through Paul Craig. This is an opportunity to really prove himself. I got him by knockout here, but the dude's inconsistent as all get out. I need to see another one against a decent competitor before I really start to say, wow, this guy could be decent at this weight class. I need to see another one first. All right, co-main event. It was a very good co-main event. We got Benoit Saint-Denis versus Mauricio Rufy. Um, Rufy is at minus 175, and Benoit Saint-Denis is at plus 150. These odds, we're kind of over minus 200 for Rufy over the past week or so. They've kind of gone down a little bit. A lot of money coming out of Benoit Saint-Denis, and I don't get it, right? For as good as Benoit is at those couple things, right? He's an underrated grappler, in my opinion. Again, the pace and the pressure and the wrestling definitely is there. One of the best guys at doing that in this division. But the dude is very, very hittable. The technique on the feet just is not there. And we've seen that in his past couple fights. We even saw that against Prepelic. He was getting hit against Prepelic, who was 18-8. Prepelic is not good, and he was still getting hit in that fight. He was still having difficulty finding the chin in that fight as minus 2,000. So, for all the things that Benoit does good, his holes are very gaping. And Rufy seems like a perfect guy to exploit those weaknesses, right? Sharp as shit on the feet, right? Carries knockout power. And it just feels like a nightmare matchup for Benoit Saint-Denis. I don't understand how many people are on him, right, at these odds. I just don't understand. There's no value to be had in Benoit Saint-Denis. If you're picking Saint-Denis, it's going to be by, either second or third round knockout or by decision, right? There's no way this guy is having success early in this fight unless he just lands a lucky shot, right? Because the one concern with Rufy is that he's gonna gas, right? That if he doesn't land the power early, if he lands it and Benoit's still there, when he's landing that power, he's gonna gas, and he might gas, right? He might be taken over late in this fight, but I just don't see it happening, right? Benoit Saint-Denis is not 10-pound overweight James Yontop. James Yontop was tough as shit, and I don't think Benoit, he is tough, but I don't think he can take that type of damage, especially after his last couple, like 2, 3 fights. I don't think he can take that damage. So, give me Rufy by knockout here to win this fight. Again, I don't get the tightening in this fight. Main event at middleweight, we got Nasruddin Imavov versus Kyle Borralho. Borralho sit at minus 130. Surprising to me because I thought these odds would be kind of dead even, or maybe Imavov as a favorite because considering the win streak at Imavov, he definitely gained my respect, right? The dude's very, very good kind of everywhere, right? Good striker, really, really fast, probably the fastest middleweight in the division, in my opinion. With that comes a lot of power, and then can wrestle as well. We've seen that in a couple fights. He used the wrestling to win these fights against Brendan Allen. He used the wrestling to win. And with having a guy as good as Brendan Allen on the ground, he's able to control himself. That's a good sign. But you get to Bahalio, some of that striking and maybe even that wrestling is being put to the test because I don't think he's gonna be shooting takedowns in this fight against Borralho. He's just a far better grappler in my opinion, and he's not gonna gas as much as Brendan Allen did, right? And Borralho can also hit himself on the feet, right? We've seen that his past couple fights hurt Jared Cannonier bad, bad, bad. His last fight, he took a year off, but the dude still got every skill in the book, right? Good wrestling as well, nice scrambles from his back. Seeing that against a couple fights against wrestlers, him scramble to either get back to his feet or end up on top. And in this fight, I do like Borralho to win either all the way in or all the way out by decision because for as much as Imavov is called a sniper and he has those good kicks and good and fast hands, he more likes to be inside in the boxing. And I think Kyle can kind of keep the range again, like I said, all the way in, keep the range with the kicks and the karate style, or be all the way, or I guess all the way out with the kicks and the karate style, and all the way in with the clinch work, with the wrestling. I expect to wrestle quite a bit in this fight. Not like he necessarily needs to. I think he could technically win a mostly striking match with Imavov. Again, like I said, Imavov's gas tank also is a bit questionable, despite all the things he does really well. So, it's kind of like a broken record with me because I keep fading Imavov and he keeps winning. And if he wins this, he's probably gonna get a title shot next. But in the end, I do like Kyle to win this by decision. Again, like the odds kind of reflect that he has slightly more skills everywhere, or like even odds or plus money better on him. But it is what it is. I'm gonna go with my actual pick, not just at who's the dog. I'm gonna go Kaya to win this fight by decision, and that is the end of the breakdown. So, there's a week hiatus. With no fights happening. I was originally planning on doing something that week, but is what it is. Appreciate you guys so much for watching this video, trying to make it to one more popular on this platform, and I certainly could do without you guys. Thank you guys. Enjoy your fight weekend.